Hello and welcome to Escapees RV Club webinars. Tonight we have a special webinar on renting out your RV. So during this time, we know there are a lot of people who want to rent RVs and try them out for the first time. And there's a lot of us that maybe aren't using them as much. And there's people that really don't use them 365 days of the year. So we thought we'd explore this topic with Mike McNaught from RVezy.com. It's a peer-to-peer rental site, and ask a little questions about what it means to rent out your RV and what that experience is like. So let me bring on Mike here. Hi. How are you doing?
Hi, Corinne. I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Welcome. We're glad to have you here and have someone who knows all about it to explain it, because personally, I haven't done it. I have had friends who have done it. And so it's nice to have somebody who can explain this process, because it can be a little intimidating for some of us who consider our RVs our homes or our second homes or whatever we do with them. So
absolutely, right. And, as an RV owner myself, considering to rent out really the second most expensive asset you're going to buy, inevitably there's a lot of questions, right? So more than happy to answer any question that comes up.
Great. That's wonderful. So you guys, if you do have questions, put them in the chat. We'll be able to see them. We have some things that we want to just talk about, of course, to go over the idea of it, that we know I have questions that are frequently asked questions, of course. But you are welcome to pop any questions you have in there, and we will try to get to all of them. So just ask away. So my first question basically would be to start with, why would someone want to rent out their RV? As you said, the most expensive thing that they own, probably.
Exactly. And, there's so many different use cases of why does somebody buy an RV? And I can share my personal experiences. My wife and I had purchased a motorhome with the intention on using it as much as we can. And, the children were young, and the first year of ownership, we used it all the time. But a couple of years down the road, suddenly the kids are in soccer and cheerleading and baseball and football. And suddenly all those weekends we used to go out and enjoy those family trips, they're just occupied with all these kids' activities. And now I have this motorhome sitting in my driveway that I'd love to use but can't. And it's very difficult to kind of justify holding on to it with the hopes of using it in the future. And that's kind of where I started thinking more outside the box of, hey, I have a couple rental properties. I wonder if this same type of idea could apply to renting my motorhome. So I started exploring that, and I fell in love with it. Number one, I met some unbelievable families and provided them with the opportunity to get into the RV industry that I loved and wanted to kind of share that passion. But also was able to generate a bit of an income that really helped facilitate the ownership of my RV and justifying being able to hold on to it.
That makes sense to me, because if you're not using it, it's just sitting there, and why not let somebody else have the chance to experience your RV or the RV life? Because we're all RV enthusiasts here, so we really love RVs and RVing, and letting somebody else have that chance is great, and a little bit of income for you too.
It is, and it turns into the relationships that are built over the years. I still keep in touch with, some of my first ever rentals, and you get to see them kind of come back year after year and really enjoy the RV lifestyle that we've all come to enjoy and fall in love with. So yes, of course, there's a revenue portion and a finance portion, but meeting the families and providing that RV opportunity, it's pretty rewarding in itself as well.
That's great. I see that a lot of people have joined, and I just want to let you guys know we are talking about renting out your RV. So if you have any questions, just pop them in the chat and we will try to get to them. So this way that we've talking about renting out your RV, because there were some RV rental places before, but they're they're RVs that have been built for that company. It's a company that owns them. It's not peer-to-peer. And something I like personally with the peer-to-peer is that you get to choose the type of RV that you want, like a specific thing. Like if you want a van, you can rent a van. If you want to rent a Class A, you can rent a Class A or a trailer, or whatever it is that you want, being on the rental side. But also that whole peer-to-peer thing, just like you were saying, that you're meeting these people and you're still in touch with them. I think it's also nice to kind of get some of that experience from the owners. And
yeah, that's a really good point. So if you think of kind of traditionally or historically how RV rentals have taken place, they were typically, in a major city center, international airport, and you're getting an empty box on wheels, right? You get the RV, fill it with whatever you want, and typically catered to more of the European market coming to travel in North America. Mm-hmm. Yeah. What the peer-to-peer market enables is really allows those rentals to go more into the outskirts, right, into more rural America, and being able to get out and rent something closer to your destination. And then you get the expertise of the RV owner themselves. And I'm not removing my barbecue or my outdoor carpet or my utensils. I try to provide a full experience. So, show up with your suitcases and everything you need is inside this RV. So it provides a pretty amazing experience for the renter, where they can just come and really just enjoy RVing. They don't have to worry about running to Walmart, picking up their pots and pans and sleeping bags and everything else. And then we see that, and you see it similar with Airbnb, with the host taking pride in the experience they're providing. We have owners that provide a bottle of wine, a case of beer, a marshmallow, like a s'more package in the RV. So it's providing an experience to the renters. So both the owner and renter side, it's really, really interesting to watch those relationships develop. You're not just renting an RV, you're kind of getting an experience, if that makes sense.
I think that does make sense to me. I think that would be wonderful. We looked at actually renting an RV. I mean, we've lived in our RV for the past 6 years, but there was a point where we were on the East Coast and we needed to be out west for an event. And so we were looking at flying in, renting an RV to come down and be at the event. Turned out we actually just used our friend's RV because they were going to sell it. And they're like, well, you can just stay in it. But we were looking at that, comparing one of the big companies and some peer-to-peer, and thinking about, and we've got to rent sheets or bring those with us and like do all of that stuff. And so to have all of that right there, and somebody who has provided, I've looked through the listings and I love when people include all this little stuff, and they have all these cute blankets for you already and all these fun things. It's more RV life experience.
It's great. And I think as a collective RV community that really embrace the lifestyle, the more people we can get into this industry, I think the better it becomes. And one of the things that we've loved to see, and this is something that just hasn't been available in the traditional marketplace, is, we call it RV delivery. You don't need, a family doesn't need to go and rent, a cottage for a couple $1,000s a week. Why not find a local campsite, a state park, a national park, somewhere that the destination that you want to go, and then you can connect with an owner of an RV that lives nearby, and they're going to drive and drop off and set up the RV for you, make sure everything's there. You just show up in whatever car you need. You don't need the F-150, and you can enjoy the entire experience and then leave when you're done. The owner comes and picks it up. So if you think from an ownership perspective, that stress of having somebody else tow your RV or drive your motorhome, that's taken away because you're the one facilitating that delivery. And from a renter standpoint, talk about convenience. You can roll up in your BMW and everything's all set up for you, right? It really accommodates both sides of that and really expands the market of who can access the RV lifestyle without making a significant financial commitment.
That totally makes sense to me. I think something that we've talked about too is being able to test out those different RVs, different types of RVs, and experience the lifestyle before maybe you want to jump in full time, so that you can go rent a Class A and test that out, and then go, oh, I want to try a fifth wheel and get that experience too. And you don't have to have a big truck to tow the fifth wheel. You just get to rent one that maybe is brought to a campground for you, and you get to experience different things.
And for those people that have never stayed in or lived in a fifth wheel, it's probably my favorite layout of any RV there is. I don't own a truck big enough to pull one, but having one dropped off where I'm going, you still get to have all the luxuries and all the living space that you get in a fifth wheel without having to invest in a 1-ton truck.
Right. I definitely think they feel the most residential. They're
absolutely. I'm 6'1", and having that extra headspace, like I love it. Right. But no, I'm not going to go buy a 1-ton truck just to go camping a couple times a year.
Yeah, I don't blame you. So we're going to talk about some of the benefits for renting out your RV. And I noticed that, and Christine, we'll get to your question too. We have a couple of people that are in the process of renting out their RVs. I actually know both of these people, and they've both been full-timers for years. And they're kind of, they're doing the same thing I'm doing, where I'm sitting out a bit during the pandemic here, but they're looking at letting their RV live a little free for a while, it sounds like. So what are some of the benefits they'll experience and others who want to rent their RV out?
Yeah, so I kind of look at, you have to think of like on the cost of ownership. So I'll give an example, is that I own a 37-foot Class A motorhome, right? So, there's the purchase price, but there's also going to be maintenance costs and other costs involved with the ownership of this RV. So for me, justifying that purchase and being able to provide the upkeep and maintenance that I should provide and I should do, renting it out just provides me with that cash flow and with that income to upkeep the RV. So whether it's getting, brakes done or tune-ups or, just maintenance in the RV, like I think that if I wasn't renting out and didn't have that additional income, I think I would find it a lot more challenging, or the decision to kind of do some of those small maintenance things. I don't know if I would do it the same way, right? Where now I need to ensure that I provide a safe, clean, reliable vehicle to my renters. But on the flip side, I also get to, experience those, to use the RV in the same way and experience all that maintenance schedule. So there's a number of really beneficial factors of why would I rent out my RV, and definitely the cost and ownership cost is a major driver of why you would do this.
Well, that's great. And I did notice Bryce did have a question related to just something we were just talking about, and wondering if there's more renter demand for drop-off set up at a location, or if more renters prefer to drive and set up on their own.
That's a really great question. And so that is something we've been really driving for a number of years, is really promoting that delivery option for renters. So what we saw in years previous is that our travel trailer renters, about 20 to 25% of them would be a delivery. So would be a renter requesting that it be dropped off and delivered and set up at their location. This summer, we experienced between 40 and 45% of our travel trailer renters were delivered. So that's definitely on the rise, definitely an increase. But of course, you will have families that own the truck, want to try out the travel trailer, aren't ready to purchase it, and want to experience the actual travel portion of it. So travel cross country or visit a couple campsites. So it's a real mix of the both, and we're getting pretty close to 50-50 on it. And at the end of the day, the owner of the RV is the one that decides how and where and when it gets rented. So you're going to be speaking directly with your renters. You're going to understand, what they want to do with your RV. And at the end of the day, you're the one that says yes or no if you're comfortable with what they want to do. I know we were talking earlier, and sometimes a renter's expectations of what you can do with an RV may not be in line of what your RV is capable of, right? So there's a kind of an education piece in that communication, is just making sure you and the renter are both aligned with the same expectations of what you can do with the RV, and having that open communication really makes things very, very, very successful.
Yeah, I could see that. Like, we love to boondock, but don't take our RV down a crazy wash in the Rocky Colorado mountains or something.
Yeah, and it's the great example is, sure, boondocking is great, but you're carrying only a certain amount of water. Once this water's gone, it's gone. So the question you get often is, well, how long is the water going to last? Well, are you having a 30-second shower, or are you having a 15-minute shower? Because it's not going to last long if you're doing a 15-minute shower, right? So it's really interesting having that communication and educating the newbies on how exactly this RVing lifestyle works.
Exactly. Because once going from a house and a shower that's hooked up to city water and boondocking is very different, and people don't experience. Yeah. We've got a couple newbies sitting in our driveway right now because my in-laws are here and they bought a trailer. They were actually going to rent, but it is in such high demand that they could not get a little trailer, a small one that they could tow, until like November, which is going to be too cold to visit us. So they're out here learning the ropes right now.
And that's amazing. And as unfortunate as and stressful and difficult as this pandemic is, the one thing that we've seen is it's really opened up people to their own backyard, right? Is being able to look more locally at traveling and supporting local businesses and local travel and exploring your own backyard. So it's been one positive side of it, is it's really driven a lot of people just to stay home and enjoy what nature has to offer and get outside and spend some time as a family closer to home, which has been great to see.
Yeah, I think so too, because there's a lot people don't realize that's in their backyard, and being able to explore that probably gives them more appreciation for where they are. And there are many state parks across the U.S., provincial parks in Canada, and a lot to see and a lot to do.
No, absolutely.
Yeah. And well, so speaking of the benefits to the RV owner, of course, people are curious too about how much money they can make renting out their RV.
No, it's a great question. I saw Christine also had the question about her nice Class A motorhome, and so really the how much can you make? I'm going to throw out kind of some averages, because not everybody is crazy entrepreneurial and wants to make every last cent that can be made out of their RV. Some people are just looking to, hey, I want to rent it out 2-3 weekends, cover a couple payments on my RV, and I'm content with that. So we see, on the higher end, a Class A motorhome, a 30-foot Class A motorhome, you're easily making north of $30,000 a year, fairly comfortably with renting that out. And that's kind of a couple weeks in the shoulder seasons and kind of renting out your whole summer. And travel trailers would be much more in line with the $5,000 to $10,000 range a year. Definitely able to push that further, depending on a lot of it has to do with your scheduling, right? If you're good at scheduling your rentals and managing that calendar, it obviously opens up a larger revenue opportunity. The mistake that some people make, and it's not really a mistake, it's just really a choice, is if you're renting out Friday, Saturday nights, and not renting out for a 7-day rental, well, that kind of eliminates a whole week of rental opportunity. Renting out a pickup on a Friday and a drop off on Sunday, well, it's much harder to find renters that are going to fill your next Monday to Friday before your next weekend rental. So the opportunities are there. So, typically $5,000 to $10,000 for a travel trailer and $20,000 to $30,000 a year for a motorhome. So and what I love seeing is, the entrepreneurial people, are people that really get the idea. And I think for some reason, RVs are seen as these extremely complicated machines, right? So only RV owners know how to use them. We've seen a lot of RV owners that have gone out and they've started to purchase a second, a third, a fourth, a fifth motorhome, and they essentially have a small little fleet. Because once you understand how to use one, you're going to understand how to use them all. They all work very, very similar, and we've seen people be very, very successful in managing their own rental fleet, and it's a nice side income, or for some people, a full-time income for them.
Wow, that's pretty amazing. So you mentioned Christine. Did you have any help for her with her question about a deposit?
So I'm trying to understand a deposit, which maybe it'd be good kind of to talk about how the pricing structure works. So at the end of the day, it is the RV owner that decides how much it's going to be rented for. So a Class A motorhome, depending on the year, you're looking anywhere from $250 to $350 a night. And people offer discounts for a longer term rental. And then we do collect the security deposit. So that's provided, the amount that's collected is provided by the owner. We suggest anywhere between $1,000 and $2,000. Kind of normal is about $1,000 security deposit. And I always suggest people do have at least $1,000. Again, you got to think that, hey, if you're not willing to let go of $1,000 over a week-long period, I'm not sure if I want you taking my RV on the road, right? So again, it's almost like part of the renter verification is that, if your price point's a certain amount and your security deposit's a certain amount, you're just likely going to attract a certain type of person that's generally going to be more responsible than somebody who wants to negotiate a lower security deposit, right? As soon as somebody asks me to lower my security deposit to $100, the red flags go up in my mind, right? I think that's just not something I'd want to do. So having a solid security deposit, a very fair rental amount, so a 30-foot Class A, you're looking at $250, $350 range a night, and $1,000 security deposit. And that security deposit we hold on to in the event of incidental damages. So kind of if you think of like a hotel room, if someone spills a pot of coffee on the floor and requires cleaning, that's not something you can make it a claim against an insurance policy. That would come out of a security deposit. So you kind of have to, what I tell people to think is if there are already damages or something goes wrong, ask yourself the question, if I did this to my RV, could I make an insurance claim? If the answer is no, then it's going to be a claim against the security deposit, right? And so we fully support and kind of run through that whole process in-house and have the support teams in place to kind of help owners through any of those events should they happen.
That's nice, because that kind of leads to something I know a lot of owners are concerned about is like the security deposit, and you guys walking through anything that happens, is if your RV gets damaged or trashed. We're all a little worried about that. I think that's a big hesitancy about renting out an RV.
That's like the number one and number two question, right? Again, and that's everyone's concern. That was my concern when I first started, is what's going to happen. So number one, we do not see a lot of claims. Like our claim rate is well below 1%, and RVs getting trashed, knock on wood, we haven't ever even experienced that. And I think the reason why is you got to think about the demographic that we're catering to. We're catering to a higher end vacation, right? It's certainly not the most inexpensive way of traveling and going. You can rent a hotel much cheaper than you can renting an RV, right? It is not the same experience. And when you're renting somebody else's property, I'm coming to your house, I'm meeting you and your family, and I'm going to be taking your property away, and then I have to bring it back to you. And you're gonna see the condition of it. So I've actually experienced the complete opposite. Is that people that rent it, they tend to bring it back almost cleaner than they got it, because they don't want me having the impression that they're dirty people or they don't take care of their things. A comparison I always like to make is it's like staying at a hotel versus staying at your great aunt's house. When you're staying at the hotel, you leave the towels on the floor, you leave it dirty, the bed's unmade. When you leave your great aunt's house for the weekend, you're making the bed, you're making sure everything's tidy, vacuuming the floor. It's just a different experience. But should anything happen, we have a full-time claims team that works in-house, which is really, really nice and unique about our business model, is that we have those employees in-house. They're all knowledgeable about RVs. They're very knowledgeable about the claims process. And we provide the tools to the owners and renters to make sure that things are documented and followed. So it's when the rental starts, we provide a digital checklist that you're going to go through, document the condition of the RV before it went out, document when it comes back, and then it's very easy to follow. All those steps are followed. So it's a lot of it's an education and learning process. But we have, and well, not today, but an office full, a company full of RV experts that can really walk you through the process should you need that helping hand.
That's great. And to hear the claim rate so low, that kind of puts your mind at ease too.
and they do happen. They do happen, but they're very similar to claims that are going to occur to regular RV owners, right? Leaving your awning open when you shouldn't have it open and it gets caught in a windstorm. Backing into or pulling out of a gas station and hitting a gas pump or a pillar or something, right? They're very typical type damages that they happen, right? They happen to all of us. That's why we all buy insurance, right? Like that's kind of the purpose of it. But you don't see the major wrecks. And again, the nice thing about the industry, you're on vacation. You're not driving 100 miles an hour down the interstate in my motorhome. It's just not built for that. You're taking your time getting to your destination.
Yes.
And I'm reading Christine's question. Yes. If I understand it, I think she's asking, do you get repeat renters? I think is maybe the question is, do the renters, I think that's the question. Do people
know if it isn't, but
but yes, definitely repeat renters, whether, coming back year after year, knowing your RV and really liking it. If you only want to go camping once or twice a year for a week or two, it's much more affordable to rent, right? And once you find the owner that you really enjoy working with and really enjoy their RV, they often come back. Absolutely.
That's a great thing. It helps you build a rapport and repeat business that that you can hopefully rely on, kind of like a campground if somebody returns there year after year.
It's true. And then again, it's that level of trust, right? A lot of trust is built in. Like I feel so comfortable when I have my repeat customers come back to rent because I know who they are. They're great. They take care of my stuff and I can trust them. And do they get stolen? Another great question, Christine. We have not encountered it. Is it possible? Yes, of course it's possible. You're fully insured should something get stolen. But we do full renter verifications. So they have to verify and confirm their identity through some facial recognition software that we use, and driver's license checks and background checks, insurance claim history. They have to have a valid driver's license. So it's a pretty good process verifying the identity of the person prior to the rental. So it would make stealing an RV much more difficult. In the event that would ever happen, you are fully covered on our insurance product.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that sounds like a lot of checks in place. Which I didn't think about since I haven't tried to rent one. Or rented mine. So I guess you really would want to make sure it's not just like somebody's pulling up and they're like, okay.
And that was one of the things that really drove the starting of the business. So my former career, I spent 12 years as a police officer and a couple of years in digital online investigations as well. And when I started renting out my RV, it was blowing me away. I had people sending me thousands of dollars over the internet. They've never met me. They've never spoken to me on the phone. And it was incredible how unsafe of a transaction that was. And it was the same from my end. I had no idea who they were. And I'm handing over the keys to my beautiful motorhome that we worked so hard to get. I just really wanted to build and provide a safe, and secure way that people could still enjoy renting an RV, and also a secure way for owners to generate a bit of an income off this asset that unfortunately sits in the yard sometimes.
Right. And feel secure doing it and not having to do their own checks on the people renting, because I'm sure would be able to do all that. The layperson, we don't know how to do all these kind of crazy checks. Probably do.
Yeah. No, and it's important, right? Like I think, there's an obligation on our side as well, that we're providing these renters, to browse the website and to locate the RVs that they want. I feel there's definitely a sense of responsibility on our end to make sure that the people that we're providing to our owners are vetted, that they are who they say they are. And, we want people to enjoy the RV lifestyle and to go RVing, right? So providing that level of security to the owners, I think it just makes everybody win at the end of the day.
That's great. So I was going to just talk a little about being on the road too. So if a renter is on the road and they have questions while they're on the road, are they calling like you guys, or do they call the owner? How does that work?
So a couple different ways. Always recommend to keep in contact with your renters, right? Your RV. They all have their own idiosyncrasies, right? You may be able to solve some very simple problems on the road. We also provide a pretty incredible roadside service product. And, we call it Roadside Assistance, but it's much more than Roadside Assistance. Is because the way we built it is that it's, getting a tire change or a tow to a garage isn't always the only service that you may need renting an RV. You may have a problem with the furnace, with the air conditioning, with the jacks not coming up, with a slide out not retracting. So we've kind of built a product for our renters that will provide them the ability to access all those things. Same thing as, hey, it happens. Maybe a tire blows out and the shop's not ready till tomorrow. Well, the owners can rest assured that we're going to take those renters, we're going to put them up in a hotel, we're going to pay for their meals, we're going to pay for a taxi ride, take care of them while this repair is being taken care of. So it's a pretty great product. I really, really like it. I think it just provides an incredible value. And myself as an owner, I just want to make sure that my renter has the ability to get my RV off the road safely and securely in the event that they need to, right? So, at the end of the day, where you get the roadside assistance from is irrelevant to me as the owner of the RV. I just want to make sure that they have that ability. So we provide all of that directly through the website, but definitely encourage owners to maintain contact with their renters, because they may have questions that you can easily answer. And we see people build beautiful documentation and binders and stickers and buttons in the RV on how things work, which is really, really helpful and beneficial too.
Yeah, definitely. I think I mentioned this earlier when we were talking that we did have my brother and sister-in-law stay, and we totally did that with them. We had a binder of how everything works so that they would know, and they could contact us if needed, but we were overseas, so it was totally different times. But yeah, being able to explain, and we walked them through everything and showed them, because something that we like to say is RVs aren't difficult. It's just they're different. So there's little things that people just don't know about. That being in contact with them can definitely help. There's little things you might
absolutely
not know about, and they might come across and not understand until they have a question. Why
exactly? And at the end of the day, whether you're RVezy as a company or you're the owner of the RV, at the end of the day, we just want everyone to have an unbelievable vacation. Right, like that's what's important, and so we've been blessed with unbelievable owners that have a great sense of responsibility, and I think are very well aligned with, our values as a company. That they've been fantastic, providing unbelievable service, and those are the ones that succeed and do really, really, really well, because they do care about the people as well.
That's great. So Bill had a good question here. He was wondering if the prices vary from state to state.
No, that's a great question, and I'm gonna say that state to state may be the wrong term, but prices will definitely vary more region to region, Obviously, if there's more rental demand around a certain area and it's a higher tourist attraction, absolutely prices may be a little bit higher. It's kind of the nature of the supply and demand. But more so, I'd find that dates and weekends are what's going to change the pricing. Fall rentals, definitely people will drop their prices. In the summer, raise them. And what we give owners the ability to do, and at the end of the day, what we want to provide is a product and the tools to owners to kind of run this their own way. So your individual calendar, you're actually able to price each individual day of the year a different price. We do not know the events in your area, and there may be a really big festival or a really big event or something happening in your area. Well, that particular weekend, you can kind of block off and change the rates and make it more in line with the supply and demand in your area, right? So I'm going to say less so state to state, more on geographic region that you're in and time of year. The seasonality plays a really, really big factor.
That makes sense. And I could definitely see festivals taking it up, or maybe if there's a lot of national parks in the area, I could see a lot of rentals there and could drive the price up, things like that. So it'd be definitely regional.
Yeah, and you're going to know your area, right? And you're going to know what drives the the demand in your market, and definitely reflecting that in your price and taking the time to really do that day by day pricing, like that just allows you, again, that makes the difference between the $10,000 in revenue and maybe the 15, right? Is being able to kind of maximize that demand.
Yeah. Memorial Day here. And that's a big one. Everybody's out camping. So
everyone's out camping.
Yeah. Raise the prices on there and still have people coming. So I did see Christine said she has a full-time setup and she transitioned to home base in Knoxville. And so she already has folks asking about using her RV. So
oh, wow.
Yeah.
And so I see she also asked the question about mileage. So again, that goes to the pricing again on the how we want to provide the tools, right? So we allow you to have a base price of what your rental is. Do you want to charge a cleaning fee? Do you want to charge for generator usage? And mileage usage is another one of those things. So yeah, absolutely, you can charge for mileage. And I find it, I find the mileage one interesting because you want to protect, you obviously want to get compensated for the use of your RV. And the more miles they put on, the more it's going to depreciate. So I usually like to put a fairly, a fair amount of free miles on a per day basis. But then I also want to protect myself from the, cross country and back trip that they want to do in 10 days, right? So I provide a pretty large amount, 200-300 miles a day as far as, free mileage that's included with the rental. But anything over that, I'll charge a fair premium, 50 cents a mile or something like that, in order to be compensated should they exceed that mileage. Because obviously, the more mileage, you're going to just have, more maintenance, oil changes, stuff of that nature.
That makes sense. So we're talking about this since Christine said she has transitioned to a home base, and there are a few others that, at least for a period of time, have. How has the pandemic changed this? Because there are a few of us that are looking to rent out our RVs because of this, because we're kind of coming off the road for a short time. But have you seen demand for rentals maybe surge, or?
It's been a roller coaster of a year. When the pandemic first hit, I think every industry on this planet was shaken up, and there's just this sense of uncertainty in what's going to happen. We felt pretty optimistic early on that the RV industry was going to recover very well. If you think about just the nature of RVing, you're in a self-contained isolation chamber, right? Like you have access to, food, water, cooking, you have toilets, showers, everything is there. So you can isolate as much as you want and you can move freely. So kind of mid-May, we started to see a real huge surge in demand. And and it's all locally, right? We don't have the international travelers that we typically do. So the surge in demand, and it's all being supplied by local travelers, has been pretty incredible. And we've seen the same thing on the ownership side, where there's unfortunately there's millions of people out there that have been hit financially during this pandemic, right? And it's put people in a very, very difficult spot. And now may be the opportunity for them to generate a bit of income off of an RV that they've never considered renting out before, is to kind of supplement maybe some of the losses that they incurred during the pandemic. So I think on both sides, it's worked out really well, that there's been more owners stepping forward to rent out their units to also kind of fulfill the demand that's been generated. So it's actually been a really great economic stimulator as well. And because if you think about it, the majority of our RV owners, they don't live in the downtown core of a city, right? We're on the outskirts. We don't live in the city. So we're pulling that revenue, all that money out of the big cities and feeding it to these RV owners across the country and across North America. So I love it because it's just putting the money back into the pockets of everyday Americans.
Yeah, well, that sounds great. If you guys have any other questions, we'll be wrapping it up soon. So I want to get them in there. Oh, well, Bill does have a question. I think talked a little bit about this, about pricing for long-term rentals.
Yeah, so that's a great question. So maybe a little bit on pricing. So we kind of look at the owner sets their pricing. So it's up to you. It's up to you at the end of the day on what you want to price your rental at. So you can give a discount, you can send custom invoices, you can do all that. On our end, we do charge on a per day rate for insurance purposes. That's one bit of a challenge I find on a long-term rental, is that the rates tend to be, our premiums are essentially based on regular shorter term rentals, right? On a 1 to 2 week rental, the pricing makes sense. Renting over a longer term, there may be some different insurance options for your particular RV. So absolutely, there's special pricing for long-term rentals. I think on our end, we require a bit of work on kind of facilitating that, but we do see it happen. We see, I have to laugh. Last year, we had a gentleman, he had rented it on middle of May, and the gentleman kept extending the rental, ended up keeping it till the end of September. And so he ended up having to buy a second RV simply because his wasn't available because it was rented the whole time. But he ended up making enough money to buy a second RV, right? So he was happy at the end of the day. So there's definitely an opportunity for long-term rentals. But I don't shortchange yourself on pricing, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's amazing. Just extending it through the whole summer. It sounds like he caught the RV bug, that renter.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Well, you know what? He was building a cottage, and he wanted to be on site during the construction, and he didn't want to invest in buy an RV, so he rented it. And if you think as an owner, you can't get a better rental. It doesn't move for a 4-month period of time. There's no mileage. There's nothing being put on it, and you're getting paid this, a pretty nice sum of money to have it sit on somebody's lot. So, and I think the owner certainly was happy with the end result on that one.
That's crazy. Yeah, I could definitely see that. Well, it looks like we don't have really any more questions that relate to the little tidbits, but I just wanted to bring up RVezy.com, since you are one of the founders and that's who you're representing here. So there are some things that we've talked about, like your insurance system, how you guys insure the renters and the owners, basically, the RV. That is unique to you. So some of these questions, if you guys are looking at other peer-to-peer rentals, you'll need to really look at their systems, because it's not exactly the same for everyone. I don't know if anybody else does the insurance system that way.
Yeah, no, and that's you bring up a good point. And obviously I'm slightly biased, being the founder of the company, but I think what makes us really unique is the fact that it's truly built from day one from an owner's perspective. right? I was RVing long before we started the company, and I think it's really important to understand the needs of an RV owner and all the the questions and concerns they may have along the way. So as we've built the website and built the platform and built the entire experience, we've done it from the perspective of an owner. Are we providing them the right tools? Are we providing them the right insurance? Are we providing the right information about the renters? So all of that's been built into the website and built into our processes. So all of our insurance claims or our resolution team, everything is handled in-house. We've built an iOS and Android app. I think we are actually the first in the world to come out with an RV rental app that both caters to the renter and the owner. And that came directly from our users, that they wanted the ability to do this, on the road, being able to talk and book and change their calendar, do everything from a mobile device. So I think that's what really makes us unique. You can find renters anywhere that are going to rent your RV. But I think having that ability to have trust in the platform and trust in the product that you're using to facilitate that is extremely important. And when the help is needed and when you do need the assistance of our team or anyone in this office, I can assure you that can be provided. And I think that's what's really important, is that we're available to hold your hand, guide you whenever you do need that assistance.
I appreciate that as an owner and as someone who would use it, to have that kind of connection. So that is great. Christine, Escapees right now, this is really one of our first interactions. They were gracious enough to come on and help explain this process for us, since we're all used to owning our RVs, but we don't know. We're not experts in renting them out. So we brought them on to help our members. Right now, that's the extent of our relationship, but we'll keep talking to you guys. Who knows? Maybe we'll do something else down the road, have another session if there are more questions, other things like that. So, but thank you for your time today, and thank you for explaining the renting process for those of us who own RVs and might be looking to make a little extra money and give somebody else a chance to experience the RV life, because, as I said, we all love it. We're all RV enthusiasts here at Escapees.
And I want to thank you again, and really appreciate the opportunity. I find this myself very educational. Being from up here in Canada and learning more about the culture and kind of the small differences between our two countries, I think is really helpful, again, for us as we grow here in the US, to make sure that we can also cater to the individual needs of our friendly neighbors down south. So I really appreciate the time, and definitely encourage anyone who has any interest or anything, visit the App Store, download the app, cruise around, check it out, and feel free, drop us a line, give us a call, ask as many questions as you have, because it's learning on both sides. So really appreciate the opportunity and all the questions that people have asked as well.
Yes, I've been surprised to see some of the people I know looking to rent out RVs. So I'm going to have to go. Actually, I just might have to go rent Denny and Veronica's van because it's pretty sweet. So just get it on there and then we'll borrow it, because we've talked about a van as another way to get out local and closer and do maybe rentals like that, so we